Good evening, everyone. It's so nice to see you all. I know you all with this nice sunshine that's coming out. Still daylight a little bit. You could have been a lot of places, but you chose to be here, and we thank you. As always, the Committee for Racial Justice is putting on another wonderful, magnificent uh, show, or basically our workshops that we do monthly. And so we are privileged today to have one titled A Time at a Time of Civil Unrest, Where Do We Go From Here? So I'm sure most of us are feeling kind of that way. Where do we go from here? And, we basically know that, the protests are still happening, the Chauvin trial and everything that's happened over the year. um it's kind of seems like it's a wave. It's a roller coaster. It goes up, it goes down. But we know that there's a need to continue on this route, because and on this journey, and continue to talk about civil unrest and where do we go from here, because we know it's not over. We know the struggle is real and we're still part of it. So we thank you all for joining us this evening, and hope you get a lot out of this workshop, and, you know, keep coming back. So without further ado, I'll introduce Janet. Well, give it to Janet.
Hi, I'm Janet. I'm on the steering committee for the Committee for Racial Justice, and I also welcome you here. I'm going to give some updates, but before I do, I want to give a congratulations shout out to two new members of the Public Safety Reform and Oversight Commission. We have a newly established commission that we hope will be very, very powerful. I mean, we're going to hold your feet to the fire, so it's going to be powerful. And we have two members who, I don't know if Angela's here, but Angela Scott was appointed there, and also George Brown. So congratulations to both of them. Wave your hand, yeah, George Brown. He's going to be later as well. And so we're very happy that they are on the commission, because we know that they will make sure that something happens in that commission and not just be a commission in namesake only. And we'll help you do that, and we'll have your back. So we're very glad you're there. Are there others on the commission that were appointed to the commission that I don't know about that are here today? Okay, all right. Okay, also I want to let you know that we have a Facebook page, but we also have a new Instagram account, and I'm going to let Darya Jones talk about that.
Hi, so I'm Darya Jones, and I've created the CRJ official Instagram page, and I update it regularly and I manage it. So I do the stories, I do the posts, I do comments, I do likes, all that, follows, all that. So I'm gonna put the name of the Instagram in the chat so everybody can see it. And that's it.
Great, thank you so much, Darya, for doing that. Get the word out more. We have been dealing with an issue in Malibu that Joanne Berlin is going to update us on.
For those of you new to the Committee for Racial Justice, we've been working for almost 10 years now, and we started because of a racial incident at Samo High, at the high school here in Santa Monica. So we've been working over the years on education issues. So we usually try to give updates on education, and then we've been working over the years on criminal justice issues. In the beginning, mass incarceration, and more lately, police use of excessive force and racial profiling issues. And so you heard about this new oversight commission, which is the first one, I think, in the history of Santa Monica. So that's good. So I want to just say a few words about the education realm at the moment. And that is that some of us testified recently at a county meeting. Malibu wants to split the school district here. They want to split from us. And the way that they have outlined it, it's going to end up being very inequitable. for students in Santa Monica. Over the years, we'll have much less money for our students here. And Malibu will be an almost overwhelmingly white school district. So we're hoping that the county can help us negotiate a better situation for the split than we have at the moment. Anyway, that testimony happened, and it's going to come up again in June. So folks will be going back to testify again. And also, the school board meeting coming up this Thursday night is going to present a 60-minute study thing on the third quarter, what they call lag and lead data on student achievements, for those of you who are interested in seeing that. So Tara, did you want to say something about the new housing team?
Sure, yeah, for those who haven't been on the last few meetings, CRJ has recently formed a housing committee, I guess. I don't know if we're a committee or a group or
a team. I'm calling it a team myself.
Yeah, team. Okay, that sounds good to me. Yeah, so which will be focusing specifically on housing and racial justice issues. We have a work plan of things we're already working on. We mobilized fairly quickly. It's a great group of people. So if you're interested in working on housing issues, I will put my information in the chat and feel free to join us.
And I just want to say too, that if anybody is not on our listserv to get the monthly emails about the meetings that we have once a month, we usually try to do it the first Sunday of the month, unless there's something conflicting with it. So if you aren't on our listserv and would like to be, put your name and your email in the chat as well. Or if you're interested in any of these three areas: criminal justice, education, housing.
Now it's time for our speakers, and we're going to introduce, first of all, Rob Howard, and Robbie Jones is going to introduce him.
Okay, so we have three wonderful speakers tonight who will be great resource for small group discussion. So we're doing things a little different. We've done this before where we go into breakout rooms, but I think you guys will really get a lot out of it tonight because we have, like I said, three dynamic speakers. I get the pleasure of introducing two of them, maybe. But the first one is Robert J. Howard III. And I'm probably going to read most of their bios because when we put it in the paper didn't get all their bio, maybe one or two lines. So I'm going to read this. Just be patient with me. Robert J. Howard III is a dynamic, inspirational speaker, restorative justice trainer and practitioner, group facilitator, and conflict mediator. Since 2005, Robert has been facilitating multiple youth and community human relations programs. He has been a speaker, presenter at numerous conferences and workshops nationwide, including the National Conference on Community and Restorative Justice, as well as Mediators Beyond Borders conference starting in 2012. Robert served as Restorative Justice Coordinator for Reed Continuation High School before starting at our very own Santa Monica High School. He has facilitated countless restorative justice trainings for school employees and communities statewide. Jack of all trades, Rob also enjoys making music, videography, portraits, and photography. And this young man is just a great resource for our African American community. We call on Rob probably too often, but he's our guy, and he's a great person. So Rob Howard.
Thank you for that warm introduction. Hello to everybody that I've seen before, and hello to everyone I've never seen before. It's good to be in digital space, at least with you. I would prefer to be in the same room. Thank you for inviting me back. I'm sitting in my comfortable chair in my Zoom studio because a lot of my work has evolved into online Zooms and Microsoft Teams. So that's why I'm in HD for some reason. On your computer screen and your Wi-Fi is not tripping. this is on purpose. I'm gonna try to keep it short for this part, and then we can get into the discussions. When I got the invitation, Robbie invited me first, so I said yes because when my people ask me for something, if I can do it, I'm gonna do it. Robbie said, "Hey, what would you do?" Yep, was the answer. So when I saw the question of what do we do next, one of my quotes that I use in my level 2 restorative justice trainings by Dr. King is actually the quote. I want to start there. He said, "There is nothing more dangerous than to build a society with a large segment of people in that society who feel that they have no stake in it, who feel that they have nothing to lose. People who have a stake in their society protect that society. But when they don't have it, they unconsciously want to destroy it." When I first read that quote, it didn't sound like a Martin Luther King quote because the stereotype of Dr. King is, Kingian nonviolence at the extreme end, willing to suffer for the cause and getting to the goal is one of the 6 principles of Kingian nonviolence. So this quote struck me as a little bit more Malcolm to me. But I think what it provides is an insight, not just at his generation, his experience, his walk, the work that he was doing, but I think it still resonates for me that we're still living in a dangerous time, that there are still people who feel like they have nothing to lose. And not only that they have nothing to lose, but this land, this world, this time, this building, this institution is not theirs. There is a clear exclusion differentiating of identity of who belongs and who does not. And one of the dangers of that is rebellion, insurrection, violence, riots. Dr. King has a lot of quotes around the riots. He says that riots are the language of the unheard. I definitely agree with that wisdom. The commonality between CRJ and restorative justice is the J in CRJ and the justice in restorative justice. The lane that I come from says that justice should be healing. I actually struggled with that definition of what justice was when I first got trained, because coming from Inglewood and coming from a family where my father was born in Jamaica, Queens, New York, 1925, World War II veteran, a police officer in New York. He taught somebody punch you, you punch them back. He taught me that you don't just let things happen to you because they'll just keep happening to you. So justice looked like revenge, payback, eye for an eye, retaliation sometimes. But what I've learned is that darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that, ultimately. Firefighters usually use water to put out a fire. But that's their responsibility, that's their call. I understand the idea of blood for blood, eye for an eye, pain for pain, suffering for suffering. But I think that what it leaves us with is a cycle where there's going to be more vengeance, more retaliation. And when I say healing, I'm specifically saying meeting the needs of the people who are harmed. If you had good intentions and you were just playing with my phone, you wanted to see it, it looked nice, you were curious about it, just joking around, and it broke, what I would need is not an explanation unless I asked for it. What I would need is what I need, not what the paper says I would need if someone broke my phone and if they meant to break it, and all this other distracting stuff that we do in our common current justice system. It becomes a chess game of privilege. It becomes a did he do it? Can you prove it? Did she do it? Did she mean it? Which level is it? Do we have witnesses? Can we? And the truth is, there's still a lack of justice even in our justice system. I think that there's still a need for what we have, courts and trials and judges and juries, because there's not a replacement. I don't believe that finding someone guilty of some crime is the end all be all of justice. No one brings back George Floyd because of a guilty verdict. It actually brought some pain to some people that I know personally, having conversations with folks. It was like some of the same people who said abolish our prison systems because of the prison industrial complex that we have was like, and now a cop goes to prison. And then there was news that came out that all the black employees that worked within the prison system had to be removed or shifted in other places or told to stay home because of some fear of what black sworn officers were going to do to someone who was found guilty. It just was another example of a slap in the face. For me, justice would be, let's fix the problem that caused the unrest. Let's not just continue to increase the insurance payments on buildings. Let's care more about the living and breathing bodies who are in pain, who are under attack, who feel disenfranchised, who feel silenced. I believe accountability is a part of that. We need to tell the truth without fear of consequence or judgment. We need to just tell the truth. And a lot of times our current justice system doesn't really permit us to tell the truth, because if I tell you the whole truth and nothing but the truth, I'll probably put myself in hotter water. So it's incentivized for me to remain silent and to not tell you the truth. That is part of the problem. I think that is one of the basic shifts that we should move towards, that telling the truth would get us closer to justice. Give us some of the answer in the healing pursuit, right? If somebody did something to me, if something happened to me, my loved ones would require someone to tell them what really happened. How did we get here? But they won't tell, because it's actually against the game to tell the truth. That's a problem. When things are harmed, we have separations and gaps. People go to their corners and they feel the way they feel. And I think that connection is a huge part that gets harmed when we are harmed. People go to their corners and go to their sides, and they're not listening to each other to understand one another. So connection is another one of the things I think we need. But to ask for connection without accountability and truth-telling, without change and healing, is skipping the order. Don't give me icing and then give me cake. I might have diabetes. That's not a healthy strategy. Give me a good balance of the cake with some icing at the time that would make sense. One of my biggest frustrations in this Zoom post George Floyd murder, the trial, is talking about allyship and advocacy. And last week I had the privilege of facilitating a global employee workshop for Black identified folks around the world. And the topic was allyship and advocacy. And how we started the conversation was, what does it look like when you are an ally? And someone's metaphor about the military came up, that if I am the ally to this country, my resources, my military, my whatever we have is in conjunction with this other country. So if you got a problem with them, you also have a problem with us. And what I find is that around social justice, including racial justice, a lot of the times people who are quote unquote allies tout allyship, but then they can tell the community, cause, or culture that they say they're allies for, maybe this is not the time, maybe this is not the way. What I tell you is, no country will allow you to be the ally to the United States and tell the United States this is not the way. If they say we're going to war, as an ally, you're expected to just put on your boots. This is where we're going because we've been in our attack, we're under pressure. So performative allyship is also one of the things that I think needs to change post George Floyd. You need to be an ally. That means you need to show up. The difference for me between allyship and advocacy is advocacy, the root word connected to lawyer in Spanish is what I was taught, is where you can use voice to speak on behalf of or to lift up voice, amplify voice. Allyship is to show up, speak up, show up. And the way that I show up should be with some consideration of what can I afford, what can I commit to, but also what does this community, culture, or cause need of me beyond my comfort? That's not a strong ally. If it's like, well, I don't like the way, I'm not really ready. That happened a lot, where people were caring so much about traffic and buildings, they weren't caring about the people, community, or the pain. And we can't get to the solutions if we're so focused on insured buildings and traffic problems. So what I think we should do is use our allyship, our privileges, and our power to support healing moving forward. So with that being said, I'll pause, and I can't wait to talk to y'all more.
Thanks, Rob. That was great. Hang around, everyone. If you want to go and talk with Rob some more in the individual Zoom rooms, we'll do that a little later. So thank you. Next, Janet.
Is George Brown.
Oh, okay. Angela available?
No,
She's not. Okay.
Is that
Okay.
it? Or you want me to read?
Okay. Mr. George
Oh,
Brown.
here's Angela right now.
Oh, is she? Is she available?
She's entering right now, but I don't know if she'll.
Well, maybe I'll just
Yeah.
go ahead.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
George Brown has been an attorney for over 3 decades. He retired from active law practice a few years ago. His previous clients include large global companies, boards, CEOs, and CFOs in complex, high-stakes financial-related litigation matters. Previously, he was also a law professor at UCLA School of Law and has also been an adjunct lecturer at UC Berkeley Law School. George was the creator of New Era Public Safety, a guide to fair, safe, and effective community policing. That was published in March 2019. The publication was the result of an extensive pro bono effort involving over 100 lawyers at his previous law firm, commenced in 2016 in the wake of numerous police killings of unarmed Black men throughout the United States. In 2020, George was appointed to the Santa Monica Public Safety Reform Advisory Committee, and in that role, he helped create and prepare the committee's recommendations to the City Council, which were approved largely unchanged by a unanimous vote in September 2020. The committee's recommendations included the creation of a permanent oversight and reform commission, along with numerous recommendations for alternative response systems, community engagement, and restorative justice, and recommended best practices for use of force policies. And George Brown was just chosen, as Janet mentioned earlier, for our Santa Monica City Council members to be one of by our Santa Monica City Council members to be one of our newly named commissioners for the first oversight of police in the history of the city. I had the pleasure of sitting on the first committee with George Brown, and this is a marvelous man. Thank God for George. I don't think we would really have a police commission if it had not been for George. You'll see if you go to his Zoom room or just even hearing his presentation now, he's an amazing person. And I just appreciate him lending his support in our direction. So without further ado, take it away, George.
Thank you, Robbie. I hope I can live up to your high expectations. And hello, everyone. It's great to meet you all. Those of you who I haven't met yet, I'm happy to have been invited to talk to you a little bit. I have basically 7 things that I would suggest for CRJ in Santa Monica related to police reform, which I'll have at the end of my my short talk here. I also want to just clear up a mistake that keeps getting made. There's a publication that I helped work on with a lot of amazing people. It's called New Era of Public Safety. It's published by the Leadership Conference Education Fund. And I was one of the leaders, so I call myself maybe a co-producer, but people keep calling me an author. So I just wanted to make that technical clarification. So, so let me say this, the question is, where do we go from here, or what's next? And my approach to trying to answer this question is to first ask, well, where are we? Because if we can figure out where we are, then maybe we can think about what's next. So when I started answering that question, I said, well, but first, where am I? So you've now heard a couple times that last week I was appointed to Santa Monica's new Public Safety Reform and Oversight Commission. This is a long ways from where I started. I lived in South Minneapolis in my youth, about a half mile from the intersection where George Floyd was murdered. That was at 38th Street and Chicago Avenue. I lived near 32nd Street and Chicago Avenue. My father had a bookkeeping and tax service on that corner, diagonally across from the Cup food store. I used to work for him once in a while at that spot. I remember there was a liquor store across the street from the grocery store where Floyd started his fateful afternoon. It's now some sort of convenience store or gas station. And my brother and I would walk by that intersection every day on our way to our junior high school. So when George Floyd was murdered by the Minneapolis police in broad daylight in front of a crowd of onlookers, I was deeply saddened and angry, but not shocked. It was another act of terror imposed on Black people at the hands of the police. It's been happening routinely over many decades. I was shocked 40 years ago when I moved to Los Angeles after college. Around the time I arrived, a man named Ron Settles was found dead, hanging from a noose in a jail cell in Signal Hill near Long Beach. I believe he was initially stopped for allegedly driving 40 miles per hour in a residential area. A young man and a local athlete with a bright future. The police claimed it was a suicide, and no police were charged or prosecuted. A lot has happened since then. So it's 40 years later, where are we? When trying to answer the question, where are we? I feel like we're in three places at the same time. First, I think we can all agree that we seem to be at an inflection point where millions of Americans are clamoring for racial equity. A window has opened. The question is, how long will it remain open? The George Floyd murder shocked the conscience of a lot of people in the US and around the globe. It was a tipping point in my hometown of Minneapolis, tipping hordes of white people into the streets. They want change. They want to dismantle anti-Black racism. And in the last year, we've all been participating in various ways in this seemingly new period of racial reckoning. There's been an enormous outpouring of goodwill and numerous real and meaningful actions by lots of institutions. Yet there's a lingering question of how to seize this moment and how to ensure that this historical moment is not fleeting. The window is likely to close at some point. Second, at the same time, at one level, we continue to be stuck in the same place concerning race. We still have our country's enduring history of white supremacy and structural anti-Black racism that was the signature of our country's founding, and it has not been abated. There's been no apology, no truth-telling, no reconciliation attempted, no making whole the injury and trauma. And importantly, young Black and brown people continue to be killed at an alarming rate by the police. Third, there's another equally important historical moment we're in, and that is the ongoing attack on our democratic system. The extremism in one of the major political parties has removed the veil and revealed their goal of pursuing an anti-democratic form of government. This political party, representing a minority faction of Americans, leverages off of fear and racism with a goal of achieving and maintaining disproportionate power. Because of the weaknesses in the structure of our government, they might win. This third reality is critical to understanding whether we can achieve real and lasting change in how policing operates in our country. An authoritarian government does not respect the views of marginalized people. It uses racism and other tactics to otherize a group of people and relies on fear and repression to maintain power and control. Under such a regime, policing and its many problems would not just remain static, as bad as it is, it would become worse. So three places at the same time. It's both sad and sobering to me. And I wish it were just a science fiction movie, but it's not. It's where we find ourselves today. Now, I want to drill down into talking about Santa Monica and start with what's happened over the last year and then give my recommendations. So since that fateful day that created an inflection point for us, a lot has happened in Santa Monica. There was the May 31st, 2020 protest against police misconduct and anti-Black racism and in support of the Black Lives Matter movement. There was a city council statements against systemic racism. There were demands for accountability for the conduct of the Santa Monica police for its actions and its inactions on May 31st. There was a petition for the resignation of the Santa Monica police chief. Thousands of signatures were gathered. There was a city manager taking several actions to proactively chip away at structural bias and promote equity and inclusion in the city. The Santa Monica Black Agenda was established and invited by the city to weigh in on relevant issues. Internal work within the city staff on race and equity occurred and significant changes were made. There was a formation of the Public Safety Reform Advisory Committee reporting to the city manager. There was the adoption by unanimous vote of the city council that Robbie mentioned of the committee's recommendations. Then there was the retirement of the former police chief. There was a hiring of interim police chief Jacqueline Seabrooks, known as the People's Chief to some in our community. There was the adoption of an ordinance establishing the Public Safety Reform and Oversight Commission. Then there was the rejection twice of an emergency ordinance that someone in the staff at the city tried to push through the city council to change the noise and protest ordinances. By the first time it was rejected by removing it from the council agenda. The second time it was rejected by a majority vote of the city council with CRJ's help and support in the letter that we prepared and sent in. And then there's the appointment last week of 11 members to serve as the initial commissioners for Public Safety Reform and Oversight Commission. Okay, so finally now, here we are. So what's next? So my overarching belief is that we need to use the opportunity of this window, this temporary period of racial reckoning, to try to create long-term structures and initiatives that can survive and persist after the majority of people start to lose interest and energy. I think things like a properly structured oversight commission can be an example of a longer-term institution that might be useful. So here are 7 things the CRJ should consider. 1, support the success of this new commission by paying attention to its activities and participating in setting its agenda. 2, identify CRJ's priority issues relating to public safety and push the commission to focus on those issues. And remember that public safety includes all aspects of a thriving, sustainable community, not just policing. 3, help the commission understand the viewpoints of marginalized communities, including young Black and Brown individuals who live, work, or spend time in our city. 4, don't rely on the new commission as the only source of leverage on issues. Remember that direct appeals to the points of leverage within the city remain important. 5, help the commission by researching what is happening on police reform and reimagining public safety in other cities. We should be looking at comparable cities in Southern California as well as progressive cities around the country. We should look at both successes and failures. 6, form alliances with other groups in the Los Angeles area who are working on the same issues. Share resources with the other group. For example, Culver City has an active effort going on public safety, reimagining and reform. 7, get informed about state level activities and legislation. Advocate for progressive reforms at the state level. Okay, I'll stop there and wrap up. And undoubtedly, you all could come up with several more items consistent with these to add to the list. And I'll stop here and say thank you again for having me.
Thank you so much, George. We really appreciate you being here and being so thorough. And yeah. And now you can see what, go ahead, Robbie.
No, I was just gonna say it was amazing.
Great. Yeah, so now you can see it's going to be very difficult to figure out which room to go in. I know that. Dr. Roslyn Satchel is a scholar activist who researches and teaches about communication, ethics, and law. Prior to entering academia, she was a successful community organizer, policy advocate, pastor, and nonprofit executive. A pioneer in using citizen journalism and social media for community organizing, her work influenced several state, national, and international policy changes and grassroots initiative, for which she received several awards and significant national media coverage. Currently, as a member of Black Lives Matter LA, she commits daily to social justice in practice and in her scholarship. In Dr. Satchel's book, What Movies Teach About Race, Exceptionalism, Erasure, and Entitlement, she brings her media, legal, and religious background together to examine cultural representations in the most influential films of all time. She earned a doctorate of philosophy in media and public affairs at Louisiana State University, Juris Doctor and Master of Divinity degrees at Emory University, a Bachelor's of Arts in Communication at Howard, and she is a Berkman Klein Center Fellow at Harvard Law School and the Blanche F. Sieber Professor of Communication at Pepperdine University. She's an itinerant elder in the African Methodist Episcopal Church with 20 years in ministry. Her son, parents, and canine kids keep her inspired in a multi-generational village of love and caregiving. Dr. Roslyn Satchel stands up for people who need to be stood up for. She comes to the church in Ocean Park when we need her, CRJ when we need her, and she's bold, she's courageous, she's unafraid, and she's someone that I go to for advice, and I look forward to hearing what she has to say today. Welcome, Dr. Satchel.
Thank you, Pastor Janet. Since we're using titles here, I'm so grateful to be a part of this. Thank you for inviting me. Thank you to the Committee for Racial Justice for the work that you continue to do long since your founding. I'm grateful. I want to thank also the prior panelists. Rob Howard, I heard about so much from one of his trainees that I was looking forward to really hearing who this person was. When your trainees, your students who you probably have a good 4 to 6 maybe hours with, actually will make a phone call on your behalf, it goes a long way. Professor George Brown is a legend that I did not know I was observing the honor of sitting with. You likely may remember a judge in Alameda County named Henry Ramsey Jr. And I recall when I was moving to the area, we kind of went through who were some people, some law professors in the area that I could reach out to. And it was interesting that your name actually did come up in that conversation. I don't know the nature of your relationship or if there was one, but I do know that your name came up among the professors that my mentor, who is now gone on to glory, called out. So it's an honor to sit with you. Thank you, Professor Brown. And for those of you who have been with me before, I can't start calling names because I'll get in trouble and I'll have to call everybody's name. So I just say thank you for your work. Thank you for being here. Thank you for providing a space where we can think together in hopes of being better together. My disclaimer, as always, is that I speak only for me. I do not speak on behalf of any institution or organization. I do not speak on behalf of Black Lives Matter. I also do not speak on behalf of Pepperdine University or Harvard University, where I hold posts. I'm an independent scholar who provides services to a variety of different folks. I am a an outspoken and unapologetic supporter of Black Lives Matter and the global movement for Black lives. I am always lifting up their banner in my individual capacity, and I do not speak on behalf of the movement. Please understand that. And please, when you quote me, quote Roslyn. I am saying this especially now because we are in a time of danger and backlash. We are in unprecedented times, though they are strangely familiar. I'm not going to go as far back as I could. I'll simply say that if we're just to talk about the founding of this organization, let's recall it was in the wake of racial backlash after Barack Obama won the presidency. That's when the noose was found at the high school. We've got to always see ourselves in historical context, brothers and sisters. Please understand that just because Biden and Harris are in the White House, we did not win. The victory has yet to come. The victory is justice. The victory is something we will work toward all our lives in hope that one day our children and our children's children will enjoy. But we are only on the precipice, which means that this is the point where we can either get knocked down or knocked off or knocked out, or we could rise to the occasion. We're at a time of empty rhetoric, a lot of empty rhetoric coming from the centers of power, where when 7 years ago, we tried to simply get people to say as a declarative sentence the 3 words together that are listed behind me, and they could not or would not do it. I don't need to mention and point you back to those presidential campaigns, right? So let's think about the fact that we may have made some progress. I am not taking away any progress that you and I really do need to celebrate, in fact, because it's healthy, you know, especially if we're really doing the work every day and we are really committed, not just the committee, right? We are really committed to racial justice, then we are really doing this work every day. And when we do this work every day, we do need to take time to celebrate our victories. That aside, now we've got to get back to work. It is now a very important time for all of us to come together in our local communities while also linking with global movements. I want to say that again. It's important for us to come together in acts of justice in local communities linked to global movements, right? Global acts of justice. These global movements are opportunities for us to magnify and amplify our individual capacity. It's an opportunity for you to replicate yourself as many times over as you can. That means that when you go to work, you don't become something that you are not at the Committee for Racial Justice meeting, right? Okay, follow me. You know, Jesus said, you deny me, and what will I do? Deny you also, right? I mean, so that's just for the folks who are Christian in the room. We can also go to the Hebrew scriptures. We can go to the Quran. We can go to any number of the sacred scriptures and find these simple principles about ethics and integrity and being consistent and authentic in who we are, irrespective of the audience. So I want for you to be encouraged. I come to you as one of you. I am a resident of Malibu. I am a member of a church in Santa Monica. I identify mostly with the politics of Santa Monica, but I happen to pay taxes and actually live over there in Malibu. And I don't see us as being these individual islands that we can't work together. In fact, as you well know, there are folks who are organizing in Malibu now who are looking to you to be the model for them as they look to work in the local community to make some global impact, right? But to have that global impact, we can't be out here doing it all on our own. The Committee for Racial Justice in Santa Monica cannot be over here in a corner. We've got to be shining our light, right? Taking it out of the bushel. That's what the folks used to tell us when we used to sing it in church, right? Take our light out of the bushel and really let our light shine so that others will follow. And in so doing, here's what I want to encourage you, because I'm looking around the room, and I've looked around the room before. I've been with you before, you know that. I'm not a new face here. I want you to take pride in who you are. I see a lot of folks who are really apologizing for there being too many white people in the room, who are concerned about there not being enough diversity, or there not being enough Black folks or people of color, whatever your term of choice might be. I'm concerned about that. And here's my concern. What Malcolm said was that white folks needed to actually go and work with white folks and do the organizing with white folks. Many prophetic community leaders since have also encouraged us to do the work internally before we go outside trying to do the work anywhere else. In fact, in my own discipline in intercommunication, I find in intercultural communication, what we see as most effective often is when there is the intra-communal conversation that is often difficult to have, oftentimes allows people an opportunity to hold one another accountable in ways that one might not be comfortable doing in so-called mixed company. So I want to encourage you to actually take pride. As you all know, we have a partnering organization that works with us with Black Lives Matter of Los Angeles, White People for Black Lives. Many of you are very much a part of leading that organization. AWARE is what the official name is, right? But we want to always recognize that there is strength in us actually just being authentically who we are. We want you to be authentically who you are. Many of you have been in the struggle in one capacity or another for 30, 40 years, some of you longer. Why are you not telling that story? Why are you not out here on the front lines saying to your brothers and sisters who look like you, think like you, eat like you, go to the places you go, do the things you do? Why are you not bringing them with you? Why are you not out there recruiting? What are you doing in your personal life to actually reflect your commitment to racial justice, not just your membership in the committee for racial justice? So let's keep those things in mind, as we always know that we don't need any more people who think that they are white saviors or, messiahs of any complexion. or hue, right? We don't need that. That's never the way movements worked. And if we were really honest, even about the Christian story, we would honestly say that there were so many people there outside of the 12, and there were so many people there that were not men, and there were so many people there who didn't believe the same, and there were so many people who never got their names called. That's how movements work. That's how it goes. You're not going to get credit. You're not going to be in the leadership. You just got to show up and work. And guess what? My daddy always taught me, your gifts will make room for you, baby. Your gifts will make room for you. You want to be a leader? Get in there and work hard, give. Do it. And ultimately, people will see that and reward that. And you will find yourself making room for yourself. And nobody will have to give it to you. You won't have to be strategically moving to achieve some personal goal. You can actually focus on the movement's goal then, right? Anybody hear me? Because I think I just said something, right? I think I just said, if you're not focusing on your individual goals, then you can focus on the goals of the movement. And I say that with emphasis because I get invited to talk a lot about Black Lives Matter because I'm very vocal with my support. And I always have to go and say, I'm not a leader of Black Lives Matter. In fact, I'm a follower. I signed up. I said, yeah, I believe. I'm that person. And I'm okay with helping from the back. I'm okay with not having my name out front. And we need more people like that. That's what we need right now. We need people who are connected. And that whole linkage, not only on the local level, but also on these global levels, that connection. And then we've also got to be strategic. We've got to be strategic always. And third and finally, I just want to say, we got to be real cautious right now. I have to be really cautious right now. Everybody who speaks on behalf of anything that suggests as a declarative sentence that Black lives matter has to be really careful right now. We're being attacked. We're being doxxed, swatted, our personal information, personal addresses being broadcast. We're having students who are being sent into our classrooms to agitate and upset. We are distract. We're dealing with a variety of institutional barriers, professors who are being asked to sign contracts that say that they will not engage in political activity. We're dealing with a variety of real assaults on civil liberties and human rights in a way that is really being swept under the rug, as though, once again, Black women are just some historically maniacal beings that are not sentient and reasonable, that somehow or another we're making these things up, that we're somehow or another not feeling secure because we're just paranoid. It's important for you to recognize that the leadership of the Black Lives Matter movement is largely women. And that means that there is a multidimensional oppression that we are suffering. And we really do need support. We need for our allies, our comrades, we need everybody to build an insular ring around us right now. We need protection. We need a fortress. We need all your skills and abilities. You've been through this before. You've seen it before. So don't let us go through it willy-nilly. We need everybody to get connected so that we can be strategic and we can protect our communities and ourselves. Black Lives Matter.
Thank you so much, Dr. Rose. Thank you, my friend Roslyn. Thank you so much. I could listen to you for hours. So now we will have a chance to have just a few questions. Robbie's going to lead this part. But just a few questions for the three of them. If you're trying to figure out, I mean, they're all amazing, obviously. That's why they're here. So, you know, we know that you want to go to all of them, but if there's a burning question, especially for someone maybe that you're not going to go to, but you want to ask it now, Robbie will call on you if you just raise your hand in the Zoom way, or raise your hand like this. We may or may not see you.
What do you think about doing smaller groups, Janet, and then just having 2 groups instead of 3? Just wondering. I can go back and forth between the 2. I mean, I don't mind if they don't mind having me.
Just have 2 instead of 3. What do you guys think? I don't know.
Well, why don't we try the 3 and see how that's working out? And then we can always, you know, switch Dr. Roslyn if she'd like to another room, you know, to go into another room, or, you know, participate in both. You know, we set up for 3, so let's try that. That's what we told our audience.
And the other thing is that once you get there, if you want to, I mean, you're not going to get as deep of a conversation, but you can switch around. There is a way to do that.
Right. So that might be an opportunity for everybody to kind of spend a few minutes in each room. Okay, let's see. All I see right now is Craig. Craig has his hand up.
And so does Kelly McKeithen.
Kelly, I see Kelly. Okay, I see you, Kelly.
You want me to go?
Yes. We only have a few short minutes for Q&A because we really want to get into the rooms. So I just want to let y'all know.
I am inspired by something George said, specifically in that a lot of what we're facing has to do with procedure and or policy. And I'm looking at something that addresses leverage when we have agencies that don't seem to be cooperative and or sensitive to the needs of African Americans. Santa Monica has a significant African American population, but yet and still, for quite some time, there has been no African American on the city council. There is one now, but many of the issues that are of concern address us, you know, specifically regionally. And as a result, many who don't live in our area, you know, take our votes for granted. So I'm wondering, you know, specifically in terms of strategy, how that can be addressed if indeed we have to more or less go back into that, or we find ourselves in that position again. You know, the whole issue with 31st is, I think, just a prime example of, you know, what it is we're talking about. You know, because this is a small community, everybody knows pretty much everybody, but at the same time, there was a broad, you know, brush in respect to, you know, how we are treated.
Yeah, I'm sure the other panelists can answer as well. But if I'm understanding you, I think the challenge is how do you exercise power when you don't necessarily have numbers? I mean, the last numbers I saw were about 4% in Santa Monica. And I think the answer has to be being organized, being connected, and having allies. And I know a lot of people are doing that now. And by being organized, you can take action. And I don't know what more to say about that. I mean, because we're really, you know, we're sort of outnumbered in Santa Monica, except for the fact that we do have a lot of allies. But I think the council's responsive to pressure. I mean, we've seen that at least over the last year. And so being prepared to put pressure on an issue and to stay with it, it would be my answer. So I think being connected, being organized, and building relationships and allies with other groups.
Can I just say something real quick? In 2017, when the Nazis as white supremacists came to the Virginia Avenue Park, we found out that we had about 300 allies that would come at the drop of a hat. And so we do have the connections throughout the region that we can be stronger than we look.
And of course, I just will add to that, we do have our Black agenda now. And so we are trying to organize the community even to make it stronger. So to have a more, a collective voice. So, there's things that we can do, Craig, that, but main thing, we got CRJ. So that's the main thing. Kelly?
Yeah, and on that, I didn't realize that CRJ was necessarily Santa Monica centric. And like, I'm from the Hollywood area, but I can still be involved with this group and or be part of that team to come and support. Yes, even if I'm not known locally in terms of, like you say, there's a certain Santa Monicans who know each other in Malibu and stuff. Yes?
Yes, definitely. And let me say something, Kelly, about that. And we are very involved, for example, with Justice Not Jails. We're involved with, many of us were protesting the last DA with Black Lives Matter on Wednesdays. And there are parts of, we started out as a response to what happened at the school board. And we deal with local issues, but we are not only about local issues. There's a lot of people here on the call that are not from Santa Monica that you'll find out. For one thing, here's Rachel.
Gotcha, so the cross-pollination.
Yeah, there is much. Thanks for asking that.
So that wasn't my initial question. Oops.
Go ahead, Kelly, if you're not done.
So I just had little clarification questions that I wanted from each of the speakers. On Rob, you had said accountability and truth-telling first, then blank can happen. And I didn't get the word written down in time. Then other questions I'm going to say just quickly. George Brown, will your numbers 1 through 7 be available in chat or somewhere for us to be able to have your list of 7 encouraging things? And then Dr. Satchel, I was just wanting to clarify when you reminded us to contextually that the noose was found when Obama was elected. Are you referring to in Santa Monica's inspiration 10 years ago when CRJ came to fruition, or something else? So I just wanted to make sure I understood what that was about.
Yeah, I think I was talking about healing justice. So the blank would be healing justice. You need truth telling and accountability.
And who was next? George, did you ask?
I'm putting it in the chat right now. I'm just forgetting it now, but I'll have it.
Love you. Thank you.
And as for me, that is exactly what I was referring to. Correct.
Thank you. Thank you.
Great. Okay, now Rachel, I guess. Oh, yeah.
But I want to also put it in the I'm sorry, if you don't mind, Robbie. I was referring to that one, but I also was using it as an allusion to what happened at Malibu High School recently. Also, I mean, I want to make sure that I'm putting this as I should have actually been more explicit, and I do appreciate you giving me an opportunity to explain. I really want us to think about the fact that this is all happening in all of our community right now. The school district is, still officially connected, and these are all of our schools, and we're really looking at some serious problems here.
Rachel, you ready?
Yes, I am. Thank you. And thank you to all the speakers. I just want to reiterate, like I do almost every time I'm in a meeting like this, to not forget about transgender, Black and brown and people of color, transgender, gay and lesbian, bisexual folks, LGBTQ, who are under constant attack. constant attack, and that includes from within their own communities, within their own communities of color. And I'm hoping that a movement like Black Lives Matter and other racial justice type organizations can really bring this to the forefront. I do not hear this in these conversations in these rooms. And it breaks my heart every time I have to read an article about some Black trans woman who's been killed at the hands of a Black man. This needs to be elevated. This needs to be lifted up. Thank you.
Hey, thank you, Rachel. Okay, so now it's time for our Zoom rooms. And Janet, take it away.
I'm sorry. I just nearly broke down in tears. Is there any of the panelists that would like to respond to what I just said?
I agree.
I agree with you.
Yeah, we agree.
I didn't hear a question. So I
Matter
didn't-
has always been very outspoken on that. You can read any of our materials. That's never been an issue. We've always been very outspoken about all Black Lives Mattering, all Black Lives Mattering. We are an organization that's been led by lesbian, gay, trans, and bisexual questioning and intersex and otherwise. So we've historically, that's our trajectory. We've always been consistent, and we do speak out on those issues.
Thank you.
Okay. Oh, Patricia, can we, I don't know, I'm getting bumped here about time. We said we were going to go into our Zoom rooms. Is it something that you have that's quick? Or is it something that you have for a particular speaker that you could say in the room?
No, I actually want to comment on Rachel's comment.
Okay.
Transgender women of color have the highest or earliest death rate of any population in the country. They have a 30-year life expectancy statistically, and that's appalling to all of us.
I just want to also add, Rachel, and everybody, that I think that allies have not stood up strong enough at all. We need to do a better job. I mean, white allies. So we're going to go in our Zoom rooms now, and I will tell you how we're going to do it. So
when they say certain things, it's a wonderful resource. So for instance, here's an example. Someone comes to you and says, but aren't police an important part of the systems that keep vulnerable people safe in our society? The answer is in large letters there, no. And then it goes in and it talks about how, like the police, social service providers and the medical industrial complex have also been a part of this problem. And so it goes through and it tells you, gives you more information, gives you some statistics, gives you some background. It's a really helpful resource to have around. And I want to tell you I'm going to drop the website in the chat where you can actually request one, and you can find it online for free. The full text of this whole little booklet is available online for free. I want you to have access to it. If you give me just a moment before you go into the next set of questions to get this on the screen for you.
Of course.
What I want for us to be really clear about is that strategic thinking and planning like this is really important to movement building. And that's where you can actually, that's the short, it's called the short, the short website. So you can also find them at interruptingcriminalization.com. And I'll put that in the chat. and their Twitter is @interruptcrim, @interruptcrim. So those are, this is an organization. See, this is why it's important to be connected, right? So because I'm connected, I know that there's a resource that could actually resolve that problem. Many folks we find are actually out there trying to recreate this.
Yeah.
And we don't have to if we just stay connected and ask the important questions like these when we have these opportunities. So thank you for such a great question, Audrey.
Okay.
Maureen, I'm sorry. Darya, you're moderating. Go ahead.
Yeah, Maureen, go ahead.
Yes. Hello, nice to be here again. And thank you so much, Roslyn, for all the work that you've been doing, and others, everyone, for the great work that we've been doing and that has brought us thus far. And we keep moving on. Well, first, two things. One, how do we keep linked in? How do we keep to link? What are some of the avenues? I know, for example, I'm a big supporter. I'm a part of the Black Lives Matter movement, and I get regular emails every day, both from the global and from the different ones that I follow. And while I think that strategically, you know, me coming from the Caribbean and the different and you know, being part of the anti-apartheid movement at a particular time, and so very aware of the global nature of what we're dealing with. At this time, when I think about like the survival and of the movement, I think about the ways in which we were able to do in history so many things without saying much. Sometimes we feel that a part of the American society is that there has to be a lot of talking, and it's needed, because I realize that while we have a lot of talking on the media, in everyday conversations, it's a no-no. It's still a no-no. People are afraid of talking about race. So while there's a lot of, you know, talking on the television, on the social media, when we get face to face, we're afraid of that conversation. Things like wanting to have affinity groups and having to explain to some Asian brothers and sisters who felt left out because there's Black affinity groups, that for 500 years, Black people weren't allowed to meet together unless there was the presence of a Black person. It was a crime for us to meet. You know, so there's a lot to be said, but I also think that there's a lot that we can do without saying something, and I think that underground networks are still very important. And so
and please know that they are still operative.
Right, but how do we get to know and link into that?
Yeah, you know, and that's the part. It's kind of like what I was talking about earlier, Maureen. We have open meetings every month. Black Lives Matter Los Angeles. Well, you know, with COVID, we've had to, well, Audrey is probably in a better position to speak on this because she probably has been there more recently than I. But what I will say is the website stays updated. We send out a weekly email. It is posted on the website. I posted the website in the chat. It's blmla.org. And so weekly we're posting updates, action opportunities, and the way that you find out about what is not public knowledge is just by being there and earning your way in, because we, you know, Maureen, you know, sis, like every other organization we've had, right? We've got infiltrators and we've got folks who are trying to present themselves as though they are friends and they are not. And we have to be very, very careful. Like there's some folks in this room right now probably who are not who they say they are. And so we have to always be cognizant of that. It's always important, I think, to move with a hermeneutic of suspicion in regard for survival. But I do not want for that to dissuade anyone from participating, right? Like there's a place for everybody to participate. And that's why I go out and I'm doing this on my own dime and on my own time. And in fact, I'm actually on the East Coast, so it's really late for me right now. I'm tired.
Yes.
I want to go to sleep, but I think this is important enough to warrant my personal time that I'm sitting here with you and having this conversation as an individual, not as a representative of any organization, and nobody is paying me. So I'm here to keep you connected.
Right.
Trying to make sure that the right folks get in and come on and get on that website, keep up with the weekly emails so that you can come out because we need you.
Yeah, well, I'll definitely be in touch with you one-on-one. I know you're busy because lots of things are happening that I would have to.
I'll love to talk to you.
Okay, thank you so much. Peace, love, and protection.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Sincerely, thank you. I appreciate that. And to you as well.
Okay. So Audrey, I see that your hand is up. Did you have another question? No? Okay.
Actually, I didn't unraise it after I talked last time.
No worries, no worries. Okay, Michael, go ahead.
Yeah, I just, boy, I haven't been part of this conversation for quite a few years. And
I remember you though.
Really, I was with this group at that critical moment of you talk about infiltration of people who were certainly not, I mean, I remember back to when the group was invaded at Virginia Park, and I really thought it was a psychodrama that I was experiencing. And it was a real she was traumatic.
Yes.
And as a Jew, you know, it's
yes.
You know, the problem of racial justice and the situation in this country is intractable. It's as I don't know if it's as or is, but it's certainly correlates to the intractability of anti-Semitism historically and globally. So I'm kind of speechless at these events because they're, you know, for me being here today, it has to do with getting involved again in life after being isolated, you know, being housebound for so long and really finding my sea legs again after this whole experience. And recognizing the integrity and profound commitment. And, you know, you made mention of the different traditions that justice is referenced. And in the Hebrew scriptures, there are many cognates of the word justice, one of which is mastery, is moral mastery. And that's what impresses me about the work that this particular group has been doing. And it blows my mind, actually, that it's almost as if, I mean, I haven't been involved or listened to this group for it's at least 4 years. I lose track after 4 years, but I come back and it's if I never left. It really is, it's quite amazing in that regard. So the road ahead is really, as you said, is fraught. This is a fraught situation. And the longer you're in it and the more progress you may think you're making, you realize that this is a generational and enduring struggle. And the question, you know, for me, what is satisfying is getting deeper and deeper understanding of what's going on. I'm not so much of a confrontational person under that description, but the growth, the moral and intellectual understanding for me is critical, just for my own integrity as a human being and making whatever difference I can in everyday life. But I have, amazing, the Black Lives Matter movement, people are putting themselves out in the streets and in the front lines. And this is, I don't know what it would have been like as a Jew in Europe, whether I would have joined an underground movement or what I would have done. If I would have had a choice to do something. I don't know, but it's just, my last statement is basically that the Jewish-Black connection in this country particularly is indisputable. It's just linked. There's just no way out unless you're Steve Miller.
Oh, and there's another one. What's that? Shapiro.
I don't know. Miller took the cake.
Ben Shapiro.
Ben Shapiro.
Yeah. Another great representative of the Jewish culture. Yeah, I have no idea. But Miller took the cake for me, I have to say.
Exactly, right? Yeah, and these are the things, right? These are the, I really appreciate you, Michael, because I remember your peace work and your peace activism, and I know you've been in the struggle for a long time. So I'm glad that you're back at the table, because we really need to have the linkages. We need to see the linkages. When I was the executive director at the National Center for Human Rights Education, a lot of our work was funded, honestly, by our Jewish brothers and sisters. And a lot of the work was to simply help people understand their power. And it wasn't like nobody was micromanaging. It was very liberative, and there was clearly allyship, but it was in a way that was empowering. And I'm not seeing that everywhere anymore. I will admit, I've seen some situations, honestly, even at Harvard since I've been there, where I've seen Black Lives Matter activists attacked by Jewish brothers and sisters who should have been on our side, and who chose to take comments that were actually more anti-Zionist, and it was really a real mess that was created that I thought was unfair, and I thought that it was a situation that polarized the relationships between our communities in a way that I think only serves a conservative agenda. And so we have to question that when that happens, and we have to always be vigilant about, really, how do we define anti-Semitism? And what then, and who gets to define it? And that's a larger question that we can't get into here, but that's been a big problem thus far in these 7 years or 8 years of the movement.
I would
like to see us work to overcome that.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Roslyn. Claudia had a quick question.
Okay, I'll try to make it quick. I actually think Michael is bringing up something really interesting, and Roslyn, I hope I'll say this shortly so that you can answer. I'm from the Detroit area. And I come from a white German family, and within my family, they have married Jewish people. And it's been quite a problem within the family with anti-Semitism. If you think about, come from a white German family, and within my family, they have married Jewish people. And it's been quite a problem within the family with anti-Semitism. If you think about
There's never enough time, especially on Zoom. Never.
Totally. I hear you.
If we're going to hear from each one of the groups real briefly, are people willing to stay an extra 15 minutes and shoot for 8:15 instead of 8 to end? Otherwise, we won't be able to hear from the groups. If anybody objects, wave at me. Okay, Robbie, are you here?
Yes, I'm here. I was trying to get those 7 things into the chat, George. I'm not having any.
Yeah, I had trouble. I couldn't paste.
I'm having trouble
and I
right now
couldn't
too.
upload a file.
Well, we can send it out in the next email too, or
Okay.
listserv. Yeah.
Okay. So what are we doing here? Okay, so we're going to hear from each group. Only problem, we forgot, Rob, we forgot to point somebody to share from our group. So if anybody is from the group that Rob was in and you want to be that point person, let me know, and you can be that person. Otherwise, let's hear out from Dr. Roslyn's group.
Okay, so I asked if anybody in my group wanted to be the point speaker, and I was nominated to do it myself. So I guess unless anybody speaks up right this second, I'm gonna do it. Our group talked a lot about how to connect between, it was really about networking and the importance of the connections we make within different communities to work for justice. And Dr. Roslyn, I'm gonna be honest, I'm not remembering everything totally clearly because I was busy on moderating, and I really, if anybody could please help me out, because I gotta be honest, I'm not remembering everything perfectly clearly.
No worries, sis, I got you. We talked a lot about resources. People were asking about resources that they could use in the work to help them to respond to people about questions about public safety. I recommended some resources that I'll post in the chat as well for everyone else, and also how to stay linked up. One of the recommendations that I made was the website of Black Lives Matter LosAngeles.org. It's BLMLA.org. I'll drop that in the chat as well. And I just wanted to make sure that everyone had resources and ways to stay connected so that the information is available to everyone. But keep in mind that in so doing, we are creating a dangerous situation where everybody has the information. And so we want to make sure that we are always protecting each other, and we want to always lift up an ethic of care where we are always putting forward first the safety and well-being of the communities most affected.
Okay, great. Let's see. Okay, we have someone from our group. Charles, you want to report out?
Thank you so much, Robbie. And it was a pleasure to be with the team and Robert. The first question was about healing and how healing takes place, how it can take place, the component of healing, what needs to be understood about healing, and also what are the next steps. And then there was another aspect where we talked about policing and how certain groups were trying to get the police to be understanding and looking for how to get accountability in the police force, that when they go to training about community, about policing, that they are not just tokenly there and saying, I don't take responsibility. So we were talking about there has to be more than a community activist there. There has to be a police chief, somebody that controls their time, controls their badges, controls their thinking and how they formulate their ideas. And then lastly, I'm just paraphrasing here because of time, we then talked about restoration. And that was linked to the justice system, understanding if the justice system is flawed or has certain shaky grounds to it. How does that get reformatted? How does the society heal, and how would the community be a bridge to ensure that the system is working for the greater good as opposed to the narrowly formed premise to which the justice system was formulated for? I think that was my broad understanding, so anybody else can chime in.
Oh, you did good. That was good.
Thank you.
Thank you, Charles. Okay, George Brown's group. Who's your point person?
Hold on. Waverly.
Oh, okay.
Oh, it's me?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
I just wrote what some people said. Oh, sorry. Someone said, they said that culture is a huge problem in policing. Culture shouldn't be changed and isn't changed by rules. Cops that have bad records or bad, just, yeah, most likely it's just records. Bad records shouldn't be hired in the city. Training is imperatively huge. It's really important. Training against bias, on how to handle tools, and training on de-escalation is important. The IOR report is the May 31st evaluation group, is focused on the lack of training on crowd control, pepper spraying and tasing, and misuse of curfews.
Okay.
Thank you, Waverly.
Thanks, Wade.
Unfortunately, we don't have much more time to do more Q&A, I don't think, at this point. At this point, Angela was going to talk about what our next month meeting is, but I don't think she's with us at the moment. So I will just tell you real quickly before Robbie closes us out that June 6th, the first Sunday in June, is our next meeting, our next gathering. And we have LA County District Attorney George Gascon coming to speak with us because he has encountered so much resistance to the changes that he wants to try to bring to the district attorney's office. A very organized and very funded resistance against him. And so he's trying to come out to community groups so that we can learn what it is he's trying to do. And I think a lot of the things that he is trying to do, we would support. So I'm hoping that you all will come out for that meeting. And if you are on our listserv or have put your email or your name into our chat tonight, you'll get a notification of that. Robbie, take it away.
Okay, thank you guys for coming out. You know how we end this. Those of you who are new, we end with sometimes different things, but tonight our major thing that we usually end with is chant from a shot of secure. Oh man, I'm in the chat room already. Okay. Tupac Shakur's mother. Okay, and so we usually start it low and then we get louder and louder. we don't have to do that today. We can just kind of say it. We'll, those of you who want to get loud, we can unmute our mics and we can go there. I'm going to tell you how I'm going to say the words and you can say them. We'll say them together after. It is our duty to fight for freedom. It is our duty to win. Okay, let me say it first. It is our duty to fight for freedom. It is our duty to win. We must love each other and support each other. We have nothing to lose but our chains. So 1, 2, 3, unmute mics. Everybody want to unmute? That want to participate in this? Okay, so we're gonna go 1, 2, 3. It is our duty to fight for freedom. It is our duty
to win. We must love and protect one another. We have nothing to lose but change.
Okay, we gotta do it 2 more times. We just do it. That was kind of okay. 1, 2, 3. It is our duty to fight for freedom.
It is our duty to win.
It is our duty to win.
To protect one another.
Protect one another. Nothing to lose but our chains. Okay. Let's do it right this time. You call and response. I'm gonna say a line and then you guys say a line.
Okay.
It is our duty to fight for freedom.
It is our duty to fight for freedom.
It is our duty to win.
It is our duty to win.
We must love and support one another.
We must love and support one another.
We have nothing to lose but our chains.
We have
nothing to lose but our
chains.
Ashay.
I just want to add,
thank you guys.
Tupac's aunt.
Thank you, everybody.
Tupac's aunt.
Oh, Tupac's aunt. I'm okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Rob. Thank you, Rob.
And I also, can I say thank you to Rachel? Thank you, Rachel Rose, for calling us out and making sure that we are always aware of the leadership and also the suffering of our trans brothers and sisters. And I think that that is very important. It is central to our entire movement. And I want to thank you because I received it and I definitely really appreciated the challenge.
Thank you, Roslyn. That means so much to me.
Thank you, Rachel.
Thank you, Rachel. Thank you, Rachel. Thanks to all our panelists. Hope to see you guys next month.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Robert. Thank you, Roslyn.
Peace, peace.
Save the chat, whoever's saving the chat.
Louise is.
Good.
Louise is saving it.
Louise,
yeah.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you all.
Thank you.